Good morning, everybody. Weeaboo in my language. I'm a Biripi woman from the mid-north coast of New South Wales here in Australia. I'd like to acknowledge all of the First Peoples of the land of which we all meet, link in and gather for Sydney WorldPride Human Rights Conference from myself, Stephen Sartor, the First Nations Advisory Committee and the staff. We're here on Gadigal country in Sydney and for everybody across the planet, recognising the ongoing struggle that we all have in all of our many nations. I pay my respects to elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge all the First Nations people participating and show my respect to all the diverse cultures here. Whilst we gather, I would ask that each of us act and behave with respect to the country and dignity towards each other, setting the examples that we need to highlight all of our human and civil rights across the LGBTQI+, brother, boy and sister girl communities and lives. I know for me that I think by leading by example and expecting to be treated in a certain way, I have to act in a certain way, and I hope that we can all do that to show and be outstanding leaders in our communities so that we can actually help and support each other. And for those people who need it even more than we do, that's what I hope we all can do. This gathering is a place to grow courage and strength and to learn, to enable forward steps that I hope will make positive changes in legislation, policy, attitudes and a safer place for us all. A way to live safe and proud with the future that encompasses our voices being heard and included without fear of violence, intolerance, of outdated government and religious practices, and in some places, cultural isolation and punishment. As many of our communities are aware of the amazing leadership of some of those who have stood strong against the violence and senseless oppression that have given us this opportunity to amplify our voices here and to continue the fight for our human rights, civil rights and cultural rights and lives. I pay my respects to those and to each of us here and wherever you are, continuing this struggle towards a just world, particularly and for even the more marginalised and isolated within our community. As we work through the next 3 days, I hope that we can gain a wealth of skills, networks, knowledge and opportunities and self-courage that will bring us a step closer to standing strong and united across the planet and making all size steps and shining a very bright light on issues in each and every place of the rainbow community, whereby bringing into general society a clearer understanding and opportunities to work together to make our human rights equal and just. It's a big task ahead, but we're all worth the effort, and it really does help the journey when we stand together. Stay safe, keep an eye on each other, and in closing, I would like to thank Sydney WorldPride, Equity Australia team for all the work behind the scenes to make this amazing human rights conference the highest standard event that we're all here to gain from, learn, share, and mostly just be here participating, get to know some new people, talk to the person next to you that you might not know, but really just to be here together and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Aunty Sue. Now, for those of you who don't know, a seminal movement in our movement for liberation in Australia was a protest that took place in 1978. The group of 78ers, as they're now known, marched peacefully on the streets, but they were met with police brutality and violence. They have taken a very special place in our history. We were to have a welcome from one of the 78ers this morning, presented by the international activist Robyn Kennedy. Unfortunately, Robyn is unwell. She couldn't be here with us today, but we wanted to acknowledge the incredible contribution that Robyn and the other 78ers have made to our movement here in Australia and around the world. So we honour those 78ers today. Our next speaker is Richard Breatherbell from InterPride.
Good morning. My name is Richard Breatherbell. I am the Vice President of Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility at InterPride. I am honored to be here. I'm filling in for our co-president, Natalie Thompson. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. This has been an amazing journey so far, being in Sydney. Did you enjoy Mardi Gras? You know, my husband and I were just talking to the mayor backstage about how supportive the city of Sydney is for Pride, for WorldPride. The whole city seems to be part of it. We had the opportunity to walk in a parade and seeing so many people come out and support, seeing the rainbow flag on balconies and people leaning over their balconies and yelling and screaming and having such a good time. That's encouraging. We need that encouragement these days. Our community is constantly under attack. It can be discouraging, it could be disheartening. Unfortunately, sometimes we attack ourselves from within. That's something we want to avoid. This kind of conference gives us the opportunity to focus on not only on what's going on outside in the larger community, but the issues that we have to address within our community. So we're going to talk about racial justice. We're going to talk about the importance of equity. We're going to talk about the importance of being an anti-racist. So I want to thank you all for being here today. On behalf of InterPride, it is my honor to welcome you and thank you for welcoming us.
Next, on behalf of the ICC Sydney, our venue for the next 3 days, please welcome Geoff Donaghy.
On behalf of every ICC team member, welcome to this venue which we are privileged to operate on Gadigal country. I'm proud to welcome you to a place that celebrates diversity, with a workplace that embraces equality and acceptance, and which thrives on a culture of kindness, respect and dignity. However, I trust the images and voices of our people you are seeing on the screen behind me illustrate this far more graphically than my mere words can, as heartfelt as they may be. I'm also proud to point out that some of the people behind these words are here with us in the audience today. But why should I even have to say this? Why should this approach to inclusive workplaces be considered any different? Shouldn't this be what every single business and workplace in the country is able to proudly say and highlight? We would sincerely hope so. You have the full support of our team for this very important conference, taking more people, more businesses, and more workplaces to such a position of respect and understanding here in Australia. But even more critically, to those countries identified by the Amsterdam Address, where intolerance and bigotry have far more serious consequences. We wish you the very best for a successful outcomes of the next 3 days with us here at ICC Sydney and across all of the WorldPride events in our beautiful city. Thank you and welcome.
Please join me in welcoming Clover, the longest-serving Lord Mayor of Sydney.
Hello everyone and welcome to Sydney. I'd like to first of all acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of our land, and pay my respects to their elders both past and present, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are here in the audience today. And I want to acknowledge and honour the many community heroes that have made significant contribution over the past 5 decades to advance equal rights and build Australia's largest LGBTQIA+ community in the country. The last 12 days have been a marvellous time to celebrate and party. I'm sure you have all been doing that. The next 3 days are a time to look beyond the glitter and the glamour to address the many serious issues facing LGBTIQA people around the world. Here in Sydney, we can enjoy not only a great climate, a stunning harbour and beaches, but a city that is inclusive, accepting and welcoming, particularly here in the City of Sydney. While we've made significant strides in Australia, there is still work to do. We need to end cruel conversion therapy and discrimination of students and teachers in religious schools. And Alex Greenwich, the member for Sydney, has committed to taking both those matters to the next state government, next state parliament. And we need to continue to strive to ensure people can be open and safe. But these are small challenges compared to those faced by many people across the globe. In other parts of the world, the only safe way of being gay, lesbian, trans or non-binary is to be invisible. The risks of ostracism, imprisonment or execution are just too great. I hope the discussions over these 3 days will lead to action that we as a city and a nation can take to advance the universal cause of LGBTQIA+ people and their rights and progress the work once WorldPride is over. We want this work to continue. I therefore welcome the news that our national government is establishing an inclusion and equity fund an inclusion and equality fund to support LGBTIQ people and civil organisations and human rights defenders in the Asia Pacific. This is an important initiative which I'm sure we all support. I think, yes. So thank you to Sydney WorldPride and the community partners for collaborating on such a significant global event. The city supports your ambition for a world that is safe, free and equal for all. Thank you.
On behalf of the New South Wales Government, a major supporter of Sydney WorldPride from the outset, please welcome Minister for the Arts, Tourism and Indigenous Affairs, Ben Franklin.
Well, good morning. Can I also start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land upon which we meet, the Gadigal people, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. For those of you who didn't see what just happened then, I was Clover's bag holder and handed her a handbag. She instructed me to hold it. I did what I was told, which is always important to do with Clover more. Mana Nangame Jurali. Gather, dream, amplify. This is the theme of Sydney WorldPride 2023, but it's also the title of a poetry collection that was launched on Gadigal land last weekend. The world's first poetry anthology written by members of Australia's First Nations LGBTQIA+ sister girl and brother boy community. This book is an expression of liberation, of vulnerability and of invincible spirit. And as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs and the Arts in the New South Wales Government, I find it deeply inspiring. In particular, I'm fascinated by the interplay between the extremely personal experiences and the collective desire to fight for the rights of others. In sharing our vulnerability, we advance our common cause. I know many of you have gone through incredibly personal and sometimes incredibly painful journeys just to be here this morning, and I acknowledge your courage and your determination. As a kid who grew up in a small town in a rural and isolated part of this state, as someone who did not see one single gay person represented in my entire world, the thought that I could stand here today as a Member of Parliament, a Minister in the Government, and a proud gay man was simply not something I could even contemplate. As the Minister... As the Minister for Regional Youth, I am particularly passionate about young people in regional areas and providing them with the access to opportunities and services and the support that they need to navigate their own journeys. This conference is being telecast around the world and across the state. Today, there may very well be a young person struggling and feeling desperately alone in a regional community, watching us, learning, hearing diverse voices, perhaps for the first time in their lives, and because of you, because of this, can now take their first steps towards an authentic future. I'm sure most people in this room know the famous quote from Martin Luther King, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And although many of us would like change to be achieved at a much quicker pace, these are comforting words. But they are passive. The arc will bend, no matter what individuals do or don't do. And I'm not sure that I can agree with that contention. I think President Obama's former Attorney General Eric Holder was spot on when he mused that the arc bends towards justice, but it only bends towards justice because people pull it towards justice. It doesn't happen on its own. The journey is long. The journey is long, but during my time in politics, the New South Wales Government has taken genuine and meaningful steps towards ensuring that the rights of all LGBTQIA+ people are protected. We've supported a variety of practical measures to ensure that members of the community are safe and free from discrimination. We've passed legislation to clear historic homosexual offences from criminal records. We established the Special Commission of Inquiry into LGBTIQ hate crimes. We listed our first Mardi Gras route on the State Heritage Register. We've improved access to healthcare for members of the trans community and increased support to ACON in delivering their services. We're moving to ban so-called gay conversion therapy. And just 2 days ago, we announced increased funding for ACON's crisis support and aftercare suicide prevention service, recognising the mental health challenges for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer people. I know there's more to do. There is so much more to do. But I am a perennial optimist and I commit myself today to doing all I can to pull that arc towards justice. At the opening of Sydney WorldPride, I was proud to announce a permanent home for the Qtopia Museum at the old Darlinghurst Police Station. This museum tells the important and sometimes painful story of our community's fight for justice and inclusion that celebrates the bravery of the 78ers who marched in the very first Mardi Gras and on whose shoulders we stand today. Our community has a long history of embracing bravery and love in the face of significant challenge and opposition and oppression. This is a history worth celebrating, and boy do we know how to celebrate. I'm sure many of you attended some of the over 300 events held through this WorldPride. The rainbow-coloured explosion of liberated energy and excitement throughout this city has been extraordinary, because the freedom expressed during this WorldPride is what it's all about. The freedom to celebrate and just be ourselves. That's why the New South Wales Government invested millions of dollars in bringing WorldPride to Sydney and to support this conference, the largest LGBTQIA+ human rights conference ever to be held anywhere in the world. This financial investment is important because it shows our unequivocal support for the community and the huge contribution it makes to our state. While my 12-year-old self would be incredibly proud of all that's been achieved, I know we still have a long way to go. And that's why events such as this conference are so important, to push governments and legislators and opinion leaders to go even further. The discussions that you have over the next few days will be a lightning rod for new ideas. As a minister, I know from personal experience that politics can be contentious, that people can have different opinions. But this is where change happens, within the contested space. I know it's a struggle to ensure that all voices of our community are heard, whether they're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or from an intersection of different backgrounds, but it is ultimately a struggle which must be had. For example, the Australian census does not properly capture information on sexual orientation or gender identity. Until we are counted, we will remain invisible, and I believe it's time to count us in. I can pledge today that I will continue to fight for our community to count, directly lobby the federal government to have our representation in the census, as governments plan for the delivery of services and as we create our future. Governments should be pushed. We must be pushed, and this conference is doing just that. Sydney WorldPride 2023 is a great leap forward, and I'm sure it'll be looked back on as a significant moment in history. Because everyone who has gathered here today has a dream of a world where people are safe and free and equal, no matter where they live or who they are or who they love. We deserve to live our lives to our full potential, and while doing that, to be our true selves. This conference is about amplifying our voices, because when we are supported to shine our own light, we encourage others to do the same. In this way, I know that we will continue to achieve genuine and meaningful change. Gather, dream, amplify. Mana, Nangame, Jurali. Thank you.
And now, perhaps the busiest woman in Sydney this week. Please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Sydney WorldPride, Kate Wickett.
Well, hello, friends. I too would like to acknowledge the land in which we invited the world and the world came, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. This has been a long journey, but we are here. Welcome to the opening day of the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras and Sydney WorldPride Human Rights Conference. Today and together, we are making history. This Sydney WorldPride Human Rights Conference will be one of the most legacy-lasting, incredible conferences, not just for Australia, but for our region. I believe that this conference, which is our conference, has the potential not just to be the most incredible Sydney WorldPride event, but perhaps the most consequential event of the entire festival and the entire region. With your support, this conference can set the gold standard for productive dialogue, meaningful engagement, real action, and tangible, lasting outcomes and change. With attendees and speakers from all across the world, and in Sydney and online, we have the opportunity to make a difference, to leave a legacy. So in preparing to host Sydney WorldPride back in 2019, the team and I thought extensively about the purpose of this particular event. What did we want to achieve and what legacy did we want to leave? We knew we wanted to party with purpose. And this conference, my friends, is the embodiment of the purpose. Over the next 3 days, each of us will be immersed in exciting, challenging, and sometimes difficult conversations, but always inspiring exploration of our rights. While some of the content may be confronting, I have no doubt that we can achieve great things together. Just as the success of this conference depends on us working together, delivering a conference of this scale has required us to work with a multitude of partners. Our partners represent all parts of our community, our beautifully diverse community. To ACON, to AFAO, APCOM, Black, ERA, and the LGBT Health Australia, I say thank you. Your contributions to getting us here have been invaluable. But I also want to particularly acknowledge Equality Australia and its entire team for its leadership in bringing us together here today, tomorrow and Friday. As the content leaders for this event, Equality Australia have brought together a multiplicity of voices and have engaged far and wide to shape the journey we will take together. Over many, many months, Sydney WorldPride and Equality Australia surveyed more than 1,300 people from over 55 countries from around the world to help build and develop this event. Our What We Heard report shaped the design and delivery of the plenaries, the breakouts, and the attendee, your experience. The team have listened. We've built campaigns and a conference that is important to all parts of our community, which is important to you. To everyone that has pitched in to make this event possible, I say thank you. To the New South Wales Government and to the City of Sydney, who have backed us from the beginning, I say thank you. I also want to make an acknowledgement to all of you, our attendees. We have a number of dignitaries here today and over the next 2 days from all around the world, from human rights defenders to grassroots community representatives, from elected officials, politicians, academics, scholars, sports people, and we have a surprise for you a bit later, even musicians. We've brought together people from business, civil society, corporate and community. If we want the laws and policies to change, we need the lawmakers in the room. This is what makes our conference unique. This is what makes change possible and tangible and real. It is with immense pride that I welcome you to the Sydney WorldPride Human Rights Conference. This is the purpose. Let's go forward together in the spirit in which we came, to gather, to dream and to amplify. Thank you.